In fact, as we were putting these pictures together and Steve was showing me what he had, we should have sent out a newsletter to everybody and said, send us a picture of your garden. And maybe that's what we should do for one of our Friday webinars is if you have been someplace really wonderful and want to send us 10 pictures from a garden and tell us the name of the garden, we can share even more places that way. Okay.
So go from New York to Marie Selby Gardens and the Tampa Bay side, I believe.
Tampa Bay side, Florida.
Yeah, I believe.
Steve said, don't miss the trees.
The trees are spectacular. They're just I like big trees, and it has a greenhouse and it has little cool root stuff going on.
Club moss growing on it.
Yeah.
I put the name. We don't have the names of most of the things in here,
Yeah.
but I thought this is the Flamariurus squarosus. Squarosus means scaly, and flammari, phlegm, that stuff that you cough
Yeah.
up when you out of your throat. This is a plant that is used, is assumed that it can be used in order to deal with problems of the throat. But I thought that was a very cool name.
Just that the structure I was made. Then you
Sorry,
step out, go out in. This is outside,
Full of bromeliads and things that we all grow as houseplants.
Yeah.
Florida, it is like that.
But then I started to see
This is the little leaf banyan.
banyan trees, and they have a couple of really cool stands of them. And
What you've got are aerial roots, and some of your plants, if you grow Monstera, the vining plant with it's called Swiss cheese plant too, with the big cuts in the leaves, as it grows across, if there is moisture, in our case, where I would start all of our seeds every year in the front window. So now I had flats underneath it, and the flats were water kept moist for all these little seedlings to grow. The Monstera growing across the top, about 4 feet above, would send roots down, heading for that high moisture down below. And those roots would grow sometimes inches a day, racing to get down. And that's just what happens with the banyan tree.
To me, this is almost like Jurassic Park. That's a big dinosaur walking out of these woods, and it really struck me how cool tree structures really are here. And look at that root system and the flares, and it's big.
I think it was Sonia's husband Cam who traveled in Thailand and was in the forest where a whole temple area has been.
It was Cambodia, but yeah.
Yeah, and I thought I want to go there because seeing them in real life, where you look and go, that root is as big as half of a person, for crying out loud. Yeah. It's not just a little thing.
So it has collections and that too, the gardens, but
collections of things you can't grow. Aloes and yuccas and agaves.
Yeah.
I'm always looking at those thinking how wonderful. And I also look at things like the palms and think, I would not want to maintain a palm.
No.
Especially as they get big and they become a tree that does nothing but shade the yard 3 yards down from yours because it's so high up. But to take off all of those branches that die, the leaves that die back over the years, more work than I want to do.
Yeah. And then we'll go back up to New York. See, you see why Janet sets up all the webinars. I'm not very organized. I just do as I think sometimes. But the New York Botanic Gardens, I really loved its conservatory, and around the conservatory is the water plants. And I like these old Victorian type. There's a nice one in Buffalo. The one in Detroit is similar, but not this size.
Actually, the one in Buffalo and the one in Detroit are patterned after each other. They're both Frederick Law Olmsted Gardens. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is just a very cool, and then our surrounding, it surrounds where they have their water plant display, but inside the conservatory, it's really
And it's much bigger than our conservatory in
Yes.
Detroit. Yeah.
And the time I was there, they had set up a display for Monet, but just the size of that pond and whatever image they put up here that can reflect in the water and stuff. I
have-
like that.
I've not been to France to see Monet's garden, but friends have, and I've also read some things about his garden. He illegally rerouted a river across the road from his property to make this pond. Either he did or he bought the property from someone who had just done that. And there is a lot of controversy right now about keeping that or not keeping that.
Oh,
as they're trying to
geez.
restore the environment to what it should be.
Yeah. So in their garden, they had a lot of color
And they'd recreated the Monet walkway,
and made it.
except not to have no nasturtiums covering the entire thing by the end of the summer, which
No.
is when this should have gone.
But it was well done and enjoyed. And then all these are some of the Monet water lilies
Yeah.
that he had. And back into Michigan, a little gem, Dow Gardens.
This was one of our kids' favorite gardens when they were growing up and disliked most of the places that we took them as
Yeah.
boring. They liked Dow Gardens. It had lots of little places they could explore.
I really like the red bridges, the red theme of their bridges and their walkways. Red seemed to go so nicely with the green around them to me. And they always have structural appearances. Every day it looks a little
The
different.
Dow family, like Eldon Dow, were architects, so the hard structures had a lot to do with with what they decided to put where, as they wanted a particular hard structure, and then they planted around it. But what I think is really great about the Dow Gardens, and I know Steve's going to go elsewhere, is that they don't have collections of plants like some arboretums do, where you go and you see all the crab apples in one place. It's much more that this area is done as if it was the lawn outside of a house.
Yes.
It has a couple crab apples, it has a couple of maples, it has some shrubbery, it has some perennial borders. So you're much more looking through a landscaped garden, not a collection.
Not a collection. Yep. And they have another bridge. I really love this bridge. It just has the full circle, the look, and I've tried to recreate various pictures at various times.
Dow Gardens is in Midland, Michigan.
This is my favorite of all the ones I have of that bridge. And Dow also has sometimes has special event, special features throughout the garden.
Chihuly glass exhibit, for
They had,
instance.
So it's a nice place. You buy a year pass, you can go in, and they might have a special display. But like Janet was saying, see, this isn't a collection of trees; it's a garden.
Yep, there's some dwarf conifers. There's a Coosa dogwood. There's a
Weeping hemlock.
there's a yellow, not yellowwood, golden rain tree. I mean, there's just
Yeah.
a lot of variety of plants.
So
And Steve's favorite from
and they have a lot of water.
Yeah.
Features.
Now, associated with Dow Gardens, part of Dow Gardens is the Whiting Forest. And at the Whiting Forest, it'll blow you right away. These tree canopy walks that are showing up in a lot of places,
Yeah.
they did very, very well in the Whiting Forest.
And I can't remember its exact layout, but I know they have 3 different overlooks that you could come out to at various times. And they have places that you could go into, special rooms or special things. And it's so cool to walk above the plants and look down too.
Yeah, and it's neat to think about the way that they put it together. If you get a chance to go walk, I think at 2 p.m. every Sunday, they have a walk with one of the gardeners. And if you walk through the Whiting Forest, they'll tell you, for instance, that the railings are all made of ash that's been taken down on the
Yeah.
property.
A lot of the wood, most of the wood that's used in this kind of is stuff that they use from the property. That is not an easy rope bridge to go across.
That's an
And
interesting.
it's a challenge to the kids. It's cool. You get to beat them up there. And, you know, they've got 3 nets underneath here. These kids are not going anywhere.
Yeah.
This is full safety, but look how they protected the trees and gave them room to grow.
And I hate these kinds of things in the canopy walkways. I I have a very hard time walking out onto that surface.
And looking down. Yep.
But
Right.
it's an extensive walkway, lots of turns and alcoves that you can stop and discover.
And just it's well done.
Yeah.
Well done. One of the best we've been to. McKee is down in
Can I can I break in for a second?
Sure.
Stacy is saying what's missing from these pictures are areas to just sit and enjoy. Can either of you comment on the availability in any of these gardens or any particular notable gardens that have places that aren't meant to be walked through, but just meant to be sat in and looked out vista wise?
That's incredible timing because the Dow Gardens is one of the ones that throughout the gardens, in places that you might see when
Yep.
you're looking out from the walkway, or you might see as you're walking from one part of the garden to another, they will have
a little
what
bit
are those
of
called?
bench.
Adirondack chairs or benches just set out in various places. So does the National Arboretum, where you can just sit a good 50, 60, 80 feet away from
And-
the madding crowds and just watch people go by or watch the gardens or the
And-
birds.
A lot of times I like bench, you know, a lot of the pictures I take, I miss the benches, or I'll be behind the bench and you can't see the bench, but that's the view from the bench.
Yeah, yeah.
And so a lot of these gardens do have.
And Marilyn points out that the skywalk in Dow is similar to the one in British Columbia. That's because there is one woman behind a whole lot of these upper story. It's another book. There's one book that's called In Search of the Mother Tree, and then this one is called it's wonderful because it's her. She started out researching the life in the canopy at the top of rainforests, etc., and wanted other people to be able to understand what was going on up there. Where, for instance, on a branch of a tree, 100 feet up, the soil may accumulate to 6 or 8 inches tall and has an entire garden growing on that tree. She wanted people to be able to see that and has been all over the world counseling on building these things and where they can go and how to protect the trees as you do it. What is the name of the book? I would go look for it, but it's not going to be in the place where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
They never are. We'll let Sonia look for that. Oh, what is it called? What is it called? It has to do with the canopy. The name of the name of the book.
Don't know if I quite have enough to go on yet for a search, but we'll.
Yeah, okay.
At McKee, there's it's a nice entrance garden. It's little more wild than a couple of others down in Florida that I was at. And again, it grows unusual plants because it is Florida after all. But they have this marvelous table that's made out of one slab of wood that just the picture definitely does not do it justice. You could rent this room and have a dinner at the table, and it's a beautiful, beautiful piece of table. And that, of all the things that I saw in that garden, I really was impressed with that. And then what they had while I was there was a Lego display, and that is all Legos. This feeder.
Life in the Treetops. Life in the Treetops, and it's Margaret Lohman.
And I just thought the Legos were pretty phenomenal. I know it's a traveling display, so they may be at different gardens at different times. But when you're in an area with Botanic Gardens, Google and take a look if they have any kind of special display like the Chipotles or the Legos or anything besides the attractiveness of the garden itself. And I like some of their
Oh,
permanent
I take it back.
sculptures.
It's the next book, The Arbornaut. Arbornaut, as in, what do you call it? Argonaut.
Like astronaut.
Yeah, as an astronaut, the Arbornaut. Okay, sorry.
And it also had some
Cool.
pretty
trees.
impressive trees that this one was very large that I couldn't capture. But
Look at the Lego P.
Legos.
And Steve would tell you, because he's been 30 years listening to kids and what they ask for Christmas. If you doubt or wonder what to get for anyone under the age of 15, get them a Lego set.
Legos.
It is
Far and away the number one gift asked for kids.
On everybody's, all
Everybody.
the kids' lists.
All the way up to teenagers and even some adults. And occasionally they had a plant that I knew that was a sourwood.
Sourwood, yeah.
Yeah. And they tell you how many pieces it took to make these things in these traveling exhibits. And I like the gardener. Missouri Botanic Gardens, one of our favorite places to go.
Yeah,
We've always liked going to Missouri, but it's to my attraction that they have a lot of different areas, but they're backyard gardens.
Has always impressed me.
Always.
More gardens, more botanical gardens should have these kinds of places where they show you, here are different kinds of lawn grass.
Lawn grass and
Different kinds
of
red
twig type
These are all red
dogwoods.
twig dogwoods of different
So
types.
these are all grasses that you could see what you want. They have,
But throughout the area, then they've got everything sectioned off into backyard sized pieces. So I can look at that space that's got the round viewing window in it as one area, and they've planted it as one area. There's a vegetable garden in the middle.
yep.
There's an area sectioned off here that's a more of a gardener's garden.
And they show you examples of how
Area after area, and adjacent to the backyard areas of Missouri Botanical Gardens is the Learning Center, where there are bulletins on each of the gardens, on what's in it, why it's in it, what that area lent itself to.
and they make it serious. They like it would be a wind chime in one, and then they
The mailboxes with information
different-
about area 8, about area 7, about area 6.
and not only that, each one's planted a little different. They're painted a little different.
Yeah, and you can see I'm there in my winter coat in that picture. They're open all year long, and it's just that little bit warmer. For instance, we're there at Thanksgiving,
Yeah,
and they are still at Thanksgiving time, still clearing out annuals and putting perennial bulbs in and doing those kinds of things. So you can close up your garden in Michigan or Ohio and go to Missouri and see what you would have been doing a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
There is also an extension of the Missouri Botanic Garden, an area that they own outside of the city. What the heck is it called? That has extensive shade gardens. What is that area called? And if you like to walk in areas and
Yeah.
see what can be done in a regular suburban space, they have big walking areas through shaded, so big
can't
shaded
remember
gardens to look at.
yeah, it is part of that.
Yeah, Gauge.
Yeah.
Okay, you keep going.
So anyway, they give examples of vegetables, annuals, perennials, shrubs, setups for outdoor back patio. And just before we leave there, what they did to their parking lot to protect these trees by adding this type of pavement in there
That's what we'd
has
like to have.
really made a difference.
We'd
We were
like to
there
have-
before they did this.
We are considering this and have to look at the cost of this for replacing our driveway.
Yep.
Because when they replace our driveway, which is asphalt and it needs to be replaced, they will very seriously damage the roots of our fir and pine trees that we don't want to have damaged. if it's got to damage it, we want to put them back something that will allow the roots to get water and continue to grow.
We had, Jen and I actually saw the difference in these trees once they did this.
Yeah.
The first year they were a little stressed, but after that they love it. And it's a really good system.